and I live at 125 North 4th Street in Brighton. I have had 3 children in the Brighton area school so far, and one of their hotspot. I remember about a year ago, Dr. Gray telling us that at this point, the 2014-15 school year, we would be sitting in the catbird seat. And I think it was an accurate prediction of what's going on. You read in the papers, you've got Pinckney still closing schools, now Howell's closing schools. We've got our enrollment back to where it was at its highest level ever. And you know what that means is, because most people don't really understand the finance, but you all do, that means that our operating budget, which is what, north of $50 million a year, is, we're in a good position financially. Obviously, we have the bond passed, so we're no longer having to use our operating funds to take care of leaky ceilings and, you know, put out fires. So we can be that much more fiscally responsible, just like having a savings account instead of a credit card. The facilities look fabulous. Football field looks fabulous. Tennis courts look fabulous. The new parking lots look fabulous. The new music rooms are going to be remarkable. Everything seems to be going as planned. And since we're not worried about losing per pupil funding, because we're not as worried about losing pupils, for reasons beyond our control. We lose students. Michigan was the only state in the entire nation to lose population during the last census. So we're going to lose pupils. We have less people of voting age that have children in the history of Michigan. Big generation of people whose kids already went through the schools, they're not interested. Even in the face of that, we're doing well. I bring this up, you know, not only to tell you guys that you're doing a fabulous job, but also to remind you that when your glass is full, you need to stop pouring. The last meeting, I was, and I'm sure other people were, a little disoriented and surprised that 20 or so people that did not give their addresses stood up here and suggested that chartering or authorizing the charter for the so-called Limbaum Classical Academy is actually up for discussion. This was news to me, as it was for pretty much everybody at that meeting, except for obviously Mr. Fiani, who spoke quite eloquently about his discussions with those folks in advance. I didn't have a lot of time. I'm a busy person. But I was able to, read some of the rights and responsibilities that go along with authorizing a charter school. And they concerned me. To quote from the Michigan Department of Education website on their charter page, let's see. One of the challenges, they say, is you have to, deal with the political critics of charter schools in general.
Mrs. Eikens,
yes.
You've actually exceeded your allotted time, so you may continue once everybody else has had an opportunity to speak.
Does anybody want to give me their 3 minutes? Because I am going somewhere.
Mrs. Eikens, you're not permitted to share time, but you're more than welcome to speak once everybody else has already spoken.
We stopped that sharing time?
It was never supposed to be instituted to begin with. I'm not sure who permitted it, but it no longer is part of the board meetings.
Okay, because
it's within the rules that are on the agenda in the back.
Well, it doesn't look like a long line. It's just interrupts my momentum.
Hello, I am Glenn Eikens. I am the husband of Sue Ellen, and her address is the. If we had a podium, that would make it a little more comfortable up here.
It's coming.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very concerned about the suggestion that the Brighton area schools be the chartering sponsor for the American Classical Academy. I have my own views on charter schools, and I don't think those are as relevant as there's been a movement in this governing body, which, you know, I've got a few points to make on that. First of all, I'd like to give you the definition of the word parochial. Now, not in the sense of religious parochialism, but having a limited or narrow view, outlook, or scope. Provincial, intolerant, and narrow-minded. So far, the current members, many of the current members of this school board, have openly opposed a fiscally responsible bond that only enhanced our district's standing, blatantly promoted charter schools on their commercial properties, senselessly and without explanation removed a voice of reason from the board or the bond committee, proposed eliminating the second call to the public at meetings, possibly to limit dissent, threatened police presence at board meetings, taken by many as a ploy, once again, to quiet dissent. And now they appear to be lobbying, many of them, for a partnership with the American Classical Academy, a group that is openly opposed to board-governed public education. I went online and I looked up the American Classical Academy. I found a letter, an open letter, from Mr. Battaglia to his Tea Party brethren, inviting them to join the school board for that school. Now, whether or not we agree with the Tea Party's philosophy, it is a volatile and highly controversial group. Apparently, Mr. Battaglia is quite involved with them. And his letter, and I quote, he said, "I would like to discuss with the Brighton membership, a plan for a systemic transformation for our K-12 American public education system. We're not talking about a mere school. We're talking about a systemic plan to completely subvert the American public educational system." He says, "My partners and I have been involved in the charter school movement since the beginning." And he talks of in Durham, North Carolina, how
Mr. Eikens, you've exceeded your allotted 3 minutes.
I will go to the back and continue. What I'd like to suggest, too, is that 3 minutes is a paltry amount of time for anyone to develop a legitimate point.
Well, actually, Mrs. Eikens went to about 4.5, and you're approaching 4.5 as well.
I'm sorry. I would suggest that at least 5 and possibly 10. Because sound bites do not communicate ideas.
I think the board would be happy to explore that further.
Hello, my name is Stephen Sheldon. I'm a resident in Brighton. I live by the high school, and I moved back recently. I grew up here in Brighton, and walking through the school here, I remember the school dance when I was but I went to St. Pat's, so don't hold me accountable for that. But I was wondering, I've been back for a couple of years. My parents passed away, and I got the family house. And we're right on the corner at the high school. And, well, needless to say, I wanted to know if there was any plans in the school's budget for the residents of the neighboring, you know, the homeowners of the Brighton school area, as far as all the traffic and noise. And now we got construction again this year, and it's going on till, I was told, another year and a half. By Miles View, he's a school friend of mine that I went to school with, and I'm just wondering if there's any plans on putting up maybe a privacy fence or something, because when the football games and everything is going on, people run out of parking space, and then they start parking on the grass, and they always seem to face my house and all my neighbors' houses with their lights at night. And I was just wondering if there's anything the school has in their budget for solving that problem. And I didn't know if I was allowed to ask a question or not.
Could you please be more specific? I'm trying to picture where your house would be.
I'm right at the corner, at the end of Bidwell Street.
By the pool?
On the surrounded by parking lot.
I got it.
Got me.
I know the board and the administration is always eager to work with our neighboring residents. So,
yeah.
Dr. Gray?
Yeah, if you contact me, I'll come over to your house and we'll take a look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My email's on the website. Just email me with times that you can meet, and I'll meet you.
All right. Miles gave me your phone number, and I called too late because I didn't get out of work in time. So
that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I looked on the Michigan Department of Education website, and while the state requirements to become a charter school authorizer are not very rigorous, they do warn of many pitfalls right there on the Michigan Department of Education website. And this, the more I read, the more I got concerned. A lot of the charter school framework is being challenged right now through the court system. You have court cases from California to New York regarding whether or not due process is given to students in a charter school, regarding funding, I'm not sure that when we are in the catbird seat, we want to move it onto shifting sands. We're in a very good position right now. And I'm very proud of all the hard work we did together as a community to get here. And it was hard work. Politics is never easy, especially when you're not really trying to, especially when you're just doing it for the kids. Just to bring up a few, and honestly, I just got back from vacation. I didn't have a lot of time for this. So I'm sure I could come up with 100 pages of questions. But I want to make sure that the board has considered the following, and I really hope that you look over these questions after the meeting is over. Will the board members have access to the charter school? How much access? Can they go in during the day? Can they go in after hours? Can they look at records? Will parents have access to the classical academy even if their students aren't enrolled there? Can they enter the building the same way they would a public school? Will parents have access to classical academy board meetings? Will board meetings be broadcast? Will board meetings be recorded? Will board meetings be transcripted? Will we have access to audit their books? If not, who will do the audit? If so, who will do the audit? What would it cost? What would be the cost of identifying discrepancies or conflicts of interest once that audit is done? What would be the cost of not identifying discrepancies and conflicts of interest once that audit is done? Once we approve a charter, are we then obliged to consider all other charters subsequently that apply? If so, the law would require a fair and transparent, process? And could we be held liable for denying future applications? In other words, usually the legal framework is, fairness. So, whatever criteria you use for the first one, it's not like, oh, this is convenient, we all know each other, and the building's empty anyway, and so, yeah, we give them a charter. You can get in a lot of trouble in court. You can get sued for that when the next applicant comes around. Does a target 2015 opening date allow time for each stage of the process to be carried out with quality and integrity? Could we end up with an inadvertent flood of applicant charter schools if it would be difficult to defend ourselves against opening new ones? How long should the charter be granted for? Who defines how the school must apply and be approved to re-up the contract? What process would we use to eliminate the contract? Would that be as difficult as trying to close a community school? Who will do the public reporting and public release of information regarding these institutions?
Mrs. Eikens?
Will this require additional staff?
You've exceeded your 3
Will
minutes.
this require additional hours? Will we have a
Mrs. Eikens?
revocation process in writing before we agree to the charter?
Mrs.
Who will write the
Eikens, it
revocation
appears that
process?
You believe you're the only person who
Even
doesn't
if
have
our
to
school
adhere to the
attorneys
rules.
endeavor to take
I'm not
this
quite
on,
sure why that is.
how can we rest assured that their relative lack of expertise
appreciate it if
vis-a-vis
you
the
delivered a
applicants
good example.
not inadvertently put us at a contractual disadvantage or expose us to risk? Will we have a school closure process in place ahead of the contract? Will we have control over the curriculum? If not, how will the curriculum reflect on us? For
Mrs.
example,
Eikens, I'm not
issues
sure why
such as
you
teaching
find it
about
necessary to
evolution
set
or
such
the
a
age
poor
of the
example
earth.
for our community and our students not adhering to the rules.
Thank you.
Well, she had to stop anyway. Our daughter needs to go potty. Put the kids first. So as I was saying, Mr. Battaglia, who was involved in the Durham, North Carolina controversies surrounding a charter school, he said afterward we had a little meeting and we came to the conclusion that the school of choice will not be a good choice as long as there is a government hand on the curriculum and the purse strings. I want you to think about the implications of that. He said, this is a model school system. We will provide an education option, tuition-free, working toward autonomy from the government and the government-run public schools. Seems to me their philosophy is antithetical to partnership with tax-based education. He said, we want to take an American entrepreneurial approach to the public education system. We serve the needs of the social philanthropist and the concerned investor who must maintain their principal assets. Interesting way of looking at education on a business model rather than an educational model. What we are proposing is not an idea, but a way to expand the base of the, quote, community school nationwide. If we do not agree, we find something that is more in line with our ideological base, we are free to vote with our feet in our pocketbooks. This is their Declaration of Independence, I suppose. And he says here, in an interesting elliptical phrase, now consider that every child we lift up touches 3 to 5 voters. What is the real program here? To educate children or to create servants of their political cause? He says, it took the progressive movement, and he uses that in quotation marks because, of course, anything progressive is anathema to the American way. It took the progressive movement 3 decades, less than 3 generations, to completely obliterate our schools. He says that the Brighton area schools have obliterated schools. This is not an organization that we need to do business with. If we must give them that school per state mandate, there is no way that we should be chartering these people. They're entitled to their political views, but not on my dime. He says, and he quotes Joseph Stalin as a guide. He says, education is a weapon whose effects depend on who holds it in his hands and to whom it is aimed, or at whom it is aimed. Then he quotes one of our founding fathers, a fine man, I'm sure, Samuel Adams, and he says, establishing such modes of education, this is what they advocate, to inculcate the minds of youth with the feelings of the habits of piety, religion, and morality. And he concludes in a very mysterious way. He says, we outnumber them. Who are them? Are we them? We outnumber them. If we pool our resources and circles of influence, if we together cast a broad net, it will be the weight of the minnows that carry this mission to success. I am sick and tired of the political gamemanship that's been going on this board. You think we don't know what you're up to with your Tea Party allegiance? Your allegiance belongs to the members of this community, to the schools of this community. You were elected to serve the Brighton area schools, not your political agendas. You are the definition of parochial. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak at this time?
I just want to get one thing across, and that's just that I really don't think this is the time to be opening up the Brighton area schools to any legal challenges or any additional state oversight, both of which are almost the state oversight is just part of the deal. And the legal challenges, while they may seem remote, based on the tweets that I read about a year ago, and just go on Twitter and read about the person who's running this school. He sure expresses himself in a pretty pugnacious way. I don't know anything about the guy, but if somebody was going to try and challenge the status quo with some kind of constitutional issue in their school, it'd be the kind of guy that puts that kind of stuff on Twitter. So I just don't see opening us up to constitutional lawsuits, civil lawsuits. I mean, you cannot discriminate. You can't discriminate against people with disabilities. You can't discriminate against people based on race, and you can't discriminate on people based on religion. All of which has been done on this Twitter feed, and the voices he chooses to retweet, those are the really alarming ones. So anyway, do your own research, should you have the time or the inclination, and hopefully this issue never comes up again, because it's just beyond consideration.
Does anybody else wish to speak at this time? The first call to the public is closed. At this time, we will move into board reports. Any board reports this evening? Mr. Conway?
Yeah, Miles is off tonight. His mother had taken ill, but a few weeks back he had sent an email out that had board member responsibilities, and he had asked me to kind of do a quick review, and I think Star had sent it to all the board members. And he was specifically citing a spot page 2, the first section, discusses when making, thanks Nicholas, when making decisions, school boards seek the advice of council, the district administrators, teachers, and other employees, as well as input from the community and specialists with knowledge about the topic under consideration. And in that, what he's trying to communicate is the board's responsibility to set curriculum in high school. And another one, setting curriculum and courses taught in schools. Board members' responsibility. Employing a superintendent, other administrators, teachers, and support personnel. Levying local taxes to run the schools and adopting a budget. I think it's very important that we understand the school board is set to do this. And for some reason, we don't sometimes. And I think that we obviously hired an excellent superintendent and to follow wisdom that he has. But also, we have a responsibility to do those things, and it's state constitutional law. It's our job. And Bill Anderson, you may want to debate this a little bit, but I don't believe you guys were at the meeting with the state when it came to our deficit elimination, and Bill Trombley was there, I was there, and Miles was there, and the superintendent. And it flat came out that way. It's the board's responsibility. And you want to know who's responsible here at the end of the day? We are. Not the superintendent, not Maria. The school board is. And, you know, I take that as a serious responsibility. I know everybody here does also. But I think it's time to ante up and understand that's what you have to do. And if you want to be a board member, be responsible to that. And this written information, I've asked that Nick already include it in our next package for the school board package when it comes to our next meeting. So everybody that comes here, anybody that's running for school board, knows what the responsibilities are of a school board member. It's not always what we've been told. It's not that we've been told wrong either. It's just been an assumption of what our responsibilities are. Read the details. Know the law. Confer with the superintendent, and he'll tell you what the rules are. And he'll be honest and truthful about it. But it is the school board's responsibility to do a lot more than they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. Mr. Cross.
So it says on that specific one, page 2, yes, it doesn't say that as a school board we're required to do any of those things. So I'm not sure how that interpretation of keeping requirements right has something to do.
This list, this list is supplied by the Michigan Association of School Boards. Association, okay. It says provide for the safety and welfare of students. These are board member responsibilities. Acquire and dispose of school property. Determine matters relating to school employees and contractors. Now, there's a lot of these things that we've been doing. We are because it's added in addition to.
This is becoming, we're coming a little off topic because the bottom line is, as a board member, all you're absolutely required to do once you take that oath as an elected official is uphold the Michigan state constitution and then the United States, the federal constitution. And that's what you're absolutely required to do. Even the Michigan Association of School Boards isn't even official.
Exactly.
So
we're not required to follow.
Right. It's just a set guideline.
Recommendations of things. Like I said, it's a list as such things. Here are things you can address as a school board, but it's not a requirement.
Oh yeah. It's just a set of guidelines.
Well, these.
Yeah, we're just presenting it as those are requirements.
Oh no, we're not. Okay, under right here, we're talking about MCL numbers. Legislated by the chief administrative officer and employee of the school district shall not authorize or participate in expenditure of funds except as authorized by the General Appropriations Act budget. Okay, there are MCL numbers, and the one that's probably from the state. So I'd suggest that you look at that one. This is the district responsibilities, and these that the Michigan Association of School Boards have outlined as our responsibilities have MCLs back in them. Specifically, they're not in this.
I'm not arguing with that. I'm saying that one particular curriculum part of it is just the suggestion to be oversight curriculum. I believe that through Dr. Sir and Dr. Gray, we do direct it. I could micromanage it now for a class to be absurd. I really have enough time to do my day job.
I'm not saying that, but it is, I got it.
Taking classes that are going to seems to pad outside of the scope of what we're required to do. And that's why I think we delegated this task to Dr. Gray, who then worked with his staff to make sure that our intent as a school board is carried out. Oh, sorry about that. Everyone tells me I'm too loud. How about this? Wow, I'll try to be louder, but I'm just saying this. I don't think that our charter as a board, or at least my belief of it is when I've run classes, is I don't think we're going to micromanage down to the level that interferes with Dr. Gray and Dr. Surrey and what they're trying to accomplish. Now, if we have to redirect them, for example, the PGA pass, now the direction through the superintendent is to develop a plan with Hollericke to implement that in our district. That's done. That's as far as I'm concerned. I don't think I need to do anything more than that because our superintendent's been tasked. We just have to be careful about how deep down we want to operate. We're not operations people. We're policy people. We set and direct a board. And policy is how Dr. Gray operationally dictates to his staff how they complete the mission as part of our charter. So I think we're getting 2 or 3 steps deeper into the minutia, and I think we need to what we're supposed to. That's again, that's just my opinion.
Mr. Connolly, although this isn't intended to be a dialogue or a debate right now, I appreciate the discussion, however, but
well,
we can conclude.
We'll finish it up. So as Miles had asked me to continue here, so I'll, in a finalization of this, and I'll recite this if I already said it once. School board members are trustees responsible for the trust established by the community. The most important beneficiaries of this trust are the public school students in that community. Even though board members are directly accountable to the people they represent, their primary obligation is to ensure that students' needs are identified and met. And that means whatever they are. All right, I'll leave it at that. And like I said, all of you got a copy of this. And all I'm asking for is as we go forward for 2015, as we read it, and I agree wholeheartedly with administration leading the way, but if board members believe something should be done, it should be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly, and thank you, Mr. Kraus. Any additional board reports or correspondence?
I just want to remind everybody that we on a regular basis do approve curriculum here. And in fact, we have new classes brought to us on a regular basis. But in my tenure here, it's always been the curriculum was brought to us. And as this points out, that we seek the advice. Because what we are doing is we are putting the people that we hire to do this job and ask them to perform it and present it to us. And that's why, for instance, Henry, on numerous occasions before this board, has brought new classes before us. Now the question is whether the board should suggest specific things that should be taught and do so without first asking the question, what is it that we currently teach? How is it different from what we currently teach? And what will we not teach because we do that? That is the challenge, and frankly, in the past, this board, through curriculum committee, has gone in depth into the issue of what does our social studies program have, to the point of tracking the social studies program from kindergarten through graduation and understanding the type of materials and the objectives of what we are teaching at each case. I think our danger is to present something and not know exactly what it's going to do in terms of impacting the rest of our program. That is our danger. Our safety net is having that come from our administration to us with a full plan instead of just a specific issue on one point. That's it. Thank you.
Any additional correspondence or reports this evening? For action items. For action item A, is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 11th, 2014 as presented? Moved by Mr. Trombley. Supported by Ms. Minor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 6-1. Is there a motion to approve policies 3419.02? I'm sorry, yeah, well, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you, thank you. Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Mr. View. Is there a motion to approve policies 3419.02, 4121, 4122, 4123, and 4419.02 as presented? Moved by Mr. Trombley. Supported by Mrs. Minor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion is approved. 6-0, 1 absent. Is there a motion to approve student-athlete academic and citizenship agreement as presented? Moved by Mr. Conway. Supported by Mr. Trombley. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion is approved. 6-0, 1 absent. Is there a motion to approve the emergency anaphylaxis policy language as presented? Moved by Mrs. Minor. Supported by Mr. Trombley. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Is there a motion to approve the hiring of Catherine Frisky, certified staff as presented? Moved by Mr. Trombley. Supported by Mrs. Minor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. For future action, Neola policies. Dr. Gray.
They're just changes. They're highlighted in your packet. If there are any questions, let me know. They're related to entrance age. Obviously, that's backing up due to the law. We've talked about that extensively in the past. Epinephrine auto-injectors, it's the second round of that. Anti-harassment finishes out the changes, and then emergency situations at schools, which are always changing. It seems like every year something comes out updated in relation to those. And there's many, many trainings going on presently as we head forward. So if there are questions over the next couple of weeks, please get a hold of me and I'll answer them.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. And curriculum, Dr. Suri.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a quick update on professional development this month. There's been a lot of things happening across the district in terms of PD. Today we had our first day of August Academy for our K-8 teachers. Our second day for that, 6 more hours on Wednesday. Tomorrow, new teacher orientation, and on Wednesday morning, the high school has 4 hours of professional development, technology development, PD. So, been a good turnout so far with that. We also had first steps phonics training last week for all of our kindergarten staff, and a great turnout there. I really appreciated the attitudes and the hard work coming in the middle of their summer to spend time with us there. Also just wanted to mention, last time we met, we sort of hinted to the top to bottom list being released by MDE, happened to come out, I think, that week. And hopefully you've taken some time to take a look at that. Our schools are nothing to be short of being very, very proud of at this point. We have schools in the 98th percentile, the top 2% of the state. All of our schools are in the top 20%, and Maltby, I would like to mention, making significant gains over the last 3 years, as well as Scranton. Scranton came from being around 83% two years ago. This year they're at 92%. So that's an absolutely amazing transformation there. And yeah, I think, so hopefully you had a chance to take a look at that. Like I said, we're very proud of our teachers, our staffs, our families. It just shows a lot of really good things happening. And just so you know, all of our schools, we had a couple that started in the low 90, like Brighton High School, I think was 89 3 years ago. They go right around 91, 92 and back and forth. But most of our schools started in the lower 80s and have moved up, except we do have 3 reward elementary schools, and they continue to be at this 97 to 98%. So lots for you to be very proud of.
Thank you, Dr. Suri. Dr. Gistinger, Finance.
Well, I can't top that, and I don't think I'd want to try. It's the end of our accounting cycles. I don't have much news to report other than that the bills of August 7th through the 14th are in your board packet.
Thank you, Dr. Gistinger. Dr. Gray, Human Resources.
This is always the most frustrating part of the year, human resource-wise, because everybody wants to know exactly where they're going, and then daily we get a resignation, or we have to have a new hire, or we get 10 more first graders that walk through the door and we have to switch sections. it is extensive the last 2 to 3 weeks, I would say, to say the least. So we're still cranking through it. We have, 3 days left this week until Labor Day weekend. But Monday, or actually Tuesday when the kids come back, we'll have to adjust again. So we feel very good about where we're at. We're still within our promised allotment of FTEs, even though I don't know where our numbers are going to fall. They seem strong right now, but we'll know after the first week of school, and we'll report that out in the Friday letter to you. But it is today. We heard of another person that might be going somewhere else, might be staying. That would shake up. Somebody else came in, somebody else is going. I mean, it just happens daily this time of year, and I always forget about it. It must be over the summer, and then we get smacked with the reality of it these weeks. But we have had great hires. I would say just phenomenal people out there. We posted a 20-hour-a-week secretary job and almost got 100 resumes. People with upwards of master's degrees. So we are attracting best and the brightest, and you link them with the great staff that we have. And our goal is to have all reward schools, and our goal is to have everybody above that 95th percentile, and our goal is to have the high school at 24 above in the ACT, and we're not going to stop until it happens. Good stuff, but it's a work time of year, and I feel so bad for Sarah because she answers a lot of those calls coming in, so that's where we're at HR.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. Superintendent's report?
Superintendent report, Thursday. Well, right now it's all bond. Big thank you to Vice President Trombley. We went around last night till 10 o'clock looking at buildings, making sure they were ready for when people came in today. And we've just, last year was extensive because we did about $27 million worth of work. And a lot of it was exterior work. So a lot of people saw it with the stadium and the tennis courts and those things, and those are great. I can't wait for people to come in the building. I was at Spencer today at about 4 o'clock. Their staff came back to the trainings and walked in. Many of them that have been teaching in that building for 20 years didn't even recognize the building. It's that extensive, and that has happened in every single building except the high school. The high school will be next year. That'll be the focus, where we put a new front on the building, we finish the roofing, we finish the parking lot, we look at flooring, windows, all the stuff that all the other buildings have done. Presently, we're still well under budget. We're still sitting on about $3 million in contingency. So there'll be a list of things that we had hoped to do that we could probably extend scope on, but we'll bring that to you obviously prior to that happening. So the bond is wrapping up this week. We've done about $30 million worth of work over the last 70 days, which is a lot, but it's tiring. But you walk in the buildings and see people's faces when they see this new stuff, and it's invigorating. It's really exciting. And I can't wait for opening day on Thursday, because that's going to be incorporated into the opening day address, and we're going to do a fun thing as a staff to kind of share the knowledge on that. So I'm looking forward to Thursday. I'm looking forward to kids getting back to school so I can handle everybody screaming at me for 2 weeks about buses and classes, and then they settle in and it's a great year. So I'm looking forward to it, and thank you for all your help. Without it, we couldn't get all this work done. It's a lot of work. I think our companies have done a nice job too. If they don't, we hear from either Bill or myself daily.
Don't let them off the hook yet.
I told you. That's why I threw that in there. They're doing a good job. We'll keep pushing until the end.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. At this time, we'll open up the second call of the public. If anybody wishes to speak, please step up to the microphone. You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name as well.
Guess I didn't have to take the long way. Hi, Kara Totero, 4095 Dominion Boulevard in Brighton. I know the deal fell through at Lindbaum, and then we have this contingency deal with the charter school, and that's already decided and already been voted on. What I knew that the sell of the school, Lindbaum, to the charter was the negotiation. But I'm confused. Is there a negotiation that we're going to, I don't really know the proper terms, that the Brighton area schools is going to back this school?
Do you mind if I?
Please answer.
Or I can, either way.
Yeah, go ahead. Dr. Gray, go ahead.
So for a charter school to actually charter, they have to have an authorizer. And so there's many different authorizers out there, public schools being one of those opportunities. There hasn't been any decision, obviously, and it hasn't even been brought in front of the board at this point. The charter school I met with last week they would have a great interest in us chartering because it makes the process more seamless. It's a little more difficult when you go to universities and those types of things, especially lately. A lot of times financing is tied into the authorization as well, even though I don't believe that's the case in this particular one, according to the people I met with, which included board members from that charter, some other people that work with it in relation to it, and Pat as well, Battaglia. Pat does not run the school. That's one thing I want to clear up. Pat is actually just the landowner. So he is a person that goes out and for the school purchases properties. He has no role authority beyond that in terms of the school. They have an actual board, and the heads of it do not include Pat. It would be like the owner of the property, his company. Okay? So we haven't put it in front of the board yet. Mr. Fiani and myself create the agendas. At this time, we don't have, presently, I don't know if there's an interest to put it on the agenda. I do have a meeting later this week with members of the charter as well and the board. And again, what they want to do at those meetings is kind of talk about what the school's about. So that's kind of where it's at. It's not on this agenda. We didn't plan on having it on the last agenda. That was a mistake. I talked to their board members about that. I don't know why you thought had it. It's never going to be on there. So that is what it is. But that's kind of where it's at.
Okay. Is there any benefit for Brighton area schools to authorize this? Or
I think it depends on who you ask.
How about if I ask you?
Well, if you're just looking factual, okay, if you're looking at a financial piece, I think it would depend, because how many kids do you lose to make up the 3% that you could gain in terms of revenue? So you could gain 3% of revenue. Now their charge to us is we're not going to solicit your kids. That's not an interest of ours. According to them, it's more of a homeschool recruitment type situation. I don't know if that's always true, and I don't know if that's the case if they're short in terms of those people. Kids coming into the building, because their goal out of the gate is 400-ish, and their goal long-term would be about 1,000 in terms of that facility, which they'd have to be split shift because that building's only occupiable up to 650. Now, in terms of the other benefit, the one thing they've presented to us, and that would be the board's decision, would be that there's a greater sense of control if the public school charters it. It's a 5-year process. Sue, I think that was one of your questions. It's if you charter it as a school, you control it for a 5-year period. Now, I would say control is a loose term in terms of that. They have a board. A lot of the questions Sue asked, I think, because it's a public facility and it's a public school, would be allowable, but a lot of them wouldn't, just like they aren't here. You have to make an appointment when you come. You have to stop at the main office. You have to, you can't just wander buildings, those types of things. So I think those would be in line with what we typically do, but I guess if you're talking benefit, not benefit, that's what people would see one way or the other. And again, it depends on who you ask.
So is the negotiation for the Brighton area schools authorizing the school a different negotiation than the sale of the school, sale of the building?
There's really no negotiation.
Good. Okay.
So what would happen is if they convinced enough people or enough if there was enough support from the board to put it on the agenda, it would become an agenda topic, and then they could discuss whether or not they wanted to take a look at chartering the organization.
So first it would start in the for action, and then the next meeting it would be on for future action, and then to action.
Correct.
Okay.
That's
Thank
the
you.
typical process.
All right.
These meetings that you have scheduled, can we be present?
Typically, no. Typically, they're not open meetings. They're just meetings with a couple of their members. I'd be willing to meet with anybody after them and share the results of them.
Will other members of the board be there?
Typically, there's like 1 or 2. You can't have more than 3.
Right, you can't have a quorum.
So, and I haven't brought all of them because that's a round robin quorum, and we don't do that either. So, the people that have interest in possibly hearing more from them can come to a meeting. I've met with them a couple of times because I need to know where they're at in terms of the deal financially.
I understand.
Because if they fall short I have a quick time frame with the other group, and so I need to know the seriousness because there's also work on my end during one of these deals because we have to provide paperwork and we have to work with our realtors.
Right.
And so I typically work with them,
Right.
and then if a couple of board members would like to come in and be a part of the meeting so that when I tell them about it, you know, they can collaborate, I guess, what it is, then we do it that way. But
I would like to strongly suggest that the conflicts of interest that are being perceived, you could ameliorate that by inviting the public to these meetings or at least recording them or having a transcript because, you know, this is a lot of money.
Those members have not been in those meetings.
I'm sorry?
The ones you mentioned earlier have not been in those meetings.
Well, no, but they've been in their own meetings. They, you know, Nick admitted as much at the last meeting, and so this makes me very uncomfortable. Democracy is a slow and incremental process. The reason we have public school boards is to slow things down. The charter school boards are not elected, and so they move at a whole different pace. It's a completely, I mean, you can't even compare the two institutions. And so what I want to emphasize to everybody here is that the expectation on their part is that this will move quickly. The expectation on our part is that we will take as much time as we need to consider this, and that we will not be pressured by some closing date or some, whatever you call, due diligence period. Because frankly, that's not our problem. We are here to represent the students in the district, the teachers in the district, the voters in the district, not the interests of these folks. I really think we need to take a lot of time. These are experts. This American Classical Academy is actually it's a larger thing. It's all through Hillsdale College. They're building them everywhere. There's a lot of money. And if we sit down and I mean, you can say it's not negotiating, but there's a contract. That's lawyers. That's courtrooms. That's all kinds of exposure. And we sit down with them. They're the experts. We're experts at public schools. We are not experts at charter schools. And they're working off a template that they've used with 100 schools before. So I just want to slow it down. And then as far as making everybody feel better about Pat Battaglia and whether or not he's the owner, let's clarify. He has been shilling for this American Classic Academy for 2 years. And he has been shilling exclusively among Tea Party members and people who tweet along his, Twitter community. So he is absolutely the prime mover of this institution. He's this huckster, he's the salesman, he's the face of it at this point. And if he wants a different face of it, then that's his responsibility. But at this point, it's not our responsibility to make excuses for him. He's made abrasive statements. He's arrogant enough to continue making them after we expose them here in the public forum. Perception is reality. If he wants to be perceived differently, then, maybe he ought to open a school somewhere else where people don't know about him.
Thank you. Dr. Gray, I would like to go on record that between yourself, myself, and Mr. Trombley's been very diligent in making sure not to engage in any conflict of interest situations. And so I would be careful with the accusations being made. I applaud Mr. Trombley for being very appropriate and diligent in making sure that he has not engaged in anything that would appear or come close to a conflict of interest. So thank you, Mr. Trombley. At this time,
Nick, but why don't you clarify that?
Okay, so Mr. Trombley's company that he works for, Granger Construction, is the current backup offer. In addition, it's a completely different company as well. But yeah, Mr. Trombley's not permitted to vote on matters that would pertain to his company, seeing that he serves as a director for that company, although it, as Mr. Trombley mentioned, is a completely separate entity within itself. But just to inhibit all appearances, forms, or potential conflict of interest, Mr. Trombley has been very diligent in working with Dr. Gray and myself in terms of avoiding that. So, yes.
Sherry Osterman, 3119 School Lake Drive, Brighton. I'm concerned and I'm worried, and I don't usually like to get up here and speak, but when I go to Scranton, Maltby, and Hilton Elementary School, and parents come to me and they say, what's going on with our school board? Why are they entertaining the ideas of letting another charter school in? We already have a charter school, and that charter school is doing well. Why would you want to give away a piece of our heart, a piece of our Brighton? Why would you want to give that away? So I just want you to know, the parents I'm with every day, and there's a lot of them, they don't want this, so don't do it.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak at this time? The second call to public is closed and the meeting is adjourned.